Valentine's Day, I think, is going to be a really good time if you want to explore your passionate and your erotic side to yourself. Whether you are in a long-term relationship, whether you met somebody yesterday and they look good across the room, this is a really good time to hook up. You do you, because there's no judgments here. Aloha everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your Astroforecast for this week, February 7th through the 14th. We're going to be talking mostly about Venus conjunct Mars, because that is the energy of this week, and it's going to be kind of like permeating all over the week in everything that we do. We're also going to be talking about Mercury conjunct Pluto for the third time's a charm, as it starts to move out of the sign of Capricorn and re-enter Aquarius because it was retrograde. And then we're going to wrap things up talking a little bit about Valentine's Day or Galentine's Day or Family Day or Self-Care Day or whatever that is that you celebrate. If you're celebrating all things Venusian and love towards, the end of the week, it's really on Monday. But I wanted to give you just a heads up on some of the energy of that time so that you could plan accordingly if you want to do some fun, loving things. So let's first dig into Venus conjunct Mars, which is happening now until March 25th. So the interesting thing about this is, usually Venus conjuncts Mars once a year. It happens for maybe 2 weeks or so. So in 2023, Venus and Mars will not be conjoining at all. And for this year, it's a little less than 2 months that this is happening. So this is a lot of energy focused in that place in our chart. And just the Capricorn placement in our chart, I've been saying this for weeks now, has really had just a lot of energy in that space. And so we're starting off with Venus conjunct Mars in Capricorn, and then Venus and Mars will move into the sign of Aquarius, where they will continue to be conjunct. They will continue to have this conversation of love and connection and breaking up and separating. So it's this pattern that will be happening in our lives. We're going to see it in the mundane sense in the world, countries potentially coming together, agreeing on things, then one deciding that, nope, I don't want to do that, I want to do my own thing. And then someone's coming after and saying, nope, come back, let's do it, let's work it out, let's work it out, let's break up, let's work it out, let's break up in our lives, in our world. This is the energy. It's a very passionate energy because Mars is in its exaltation in Capricorn, which means Mars has superpowers. He just took a big energy drink and he's the one that's going to be able to do things and push things and move them. And it's impulsive. It's going after what it wants, but it is in Capricorn, which is Saturn's sign, which means it's a little bit more constructive in what it wants to do. So it can be constructive, but it also can be typically Mars, very volatile, very explosive, kind of angry and likes to separate and destroy. That is something that Mars does. Now Venus, which is now direct, is direct now and is going to be kind of like working with Mars to try to calm it down a little bit, cool down a little bit, work together, figure out ways of how to connect and ease and build some harmony in there, because that's what Venusian things do. So what's really good to use this energy for, obviously, is for relationships. Even though it might come with its certain level of volatility, it is a really good time for passion and like acting on things and people that you are passionate about. So in terms of the arts, if you wanted to take action with that, especially in a very like physical sense, if it was like dance or like ice skating, or I know the Olympics or something like that is coming up, like anything artistic like that you're putting your body in at this time could be really, really positive. If you're passionate about a person, if you want to connect with somebody, if you've been pining over somebody, this is a good time to ask them out, especially like this week. You're gonna score, so definitely like act on that impulse, act on the things that you're passionate on. I think the energy is really going to be very supportive for that. It's great for rekindling your relationship. It's great for sex. It's great for lovemaking. It's great for hooking up on a casual sense. Sometimes people during these transits have a tendency to sway a little bit outside of their relationships. Never a really good thing to do. If the person you're in a relationship doesn't think that's okay, if you have an open relationship, then add them. Everybody's different with what they want. Honesty is always the most important policy. And the reason why that's going to be really important too is Saturn is in Aquarius. So be sure that whatever it is that you do, you're not going to be able to hide it for very long, because Mercury's conjunct Pluto, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So those things are going to come up and Saturn is going to make you responsible for it. So I wouldn't do things unless it's okay to do, even though like it's going to be probably a little bit easier to do. The thing is with Venus and Mars, there can be, like I said, a lot of breakups, a lot of makeups, a lot of breakups, a lot of makeups. So if you're in a bad relationship pattern, this could also be with your job. Like I'm gonna quit my job no, I'm going to stay at my job. I'm going to quit. Like whatever that thing is that you're just like on again, off again, on again, off again, it could just follow this cycle. So like, what are you doing with this? Are you going to stay in it? Are you not going to stay in it? Are you going to work it out? Like, what are you doing in regards to this? And I think that this energy is really going to highlight that for us. If we've been in these patterns, these cyclical patterns, like this is the time that we're really going to be looking at that. We're going to be like dissecting that and deciding whether we're going to stay in or whether we're going to get out. And I think that's going to be important. Is when Venus is retrograde in Capricorn, especially at the beginning of the holiday season, all parties were canceled, birthdays were canceled. We're dealing with another variant. All these different things were happening. So there's going to be a little bit more opening up now. You know, numbers are getting a little bit lower in some places. So people are feeling a little bit more comfortable in their circles to like gather and be together. And that's just going to feel like what people want to do, to gather, to come together, to have parties, to do things, and to just engage with each other. I know the Super Bowl is happening this weekend. All of those types of things are going to be things that you're going to want to do, or you're going to feel excited about doing, to engage and wanting to be like the life of the party and go to all the events and do all of the things and plan events for yourself that are going to be connective. So Venus and Mars will also be trining Uranus. This is going to be happening on the 8th. We're going to feel this into the 12th. So this just adds a little weird into the whole scenario. It adds things that are unique experiences. Sometimes it can be, especially with Mars, and it's in a trine. So typically it's going to be beneficial, but still Mars moves really fast. Uranus is there, and sometimes that can be accidents. It can be accidents to the body, especially with Mars being in Capricorn. You know, you want to be careful of the skeletal system, especially if you're like a dancer, if you're somebody that's like using your body, because, you know, accidents can happen, and you just want to be careful that you're taking all the proper precautions and you're using your gear or whatever it is with whatever it is that you're doing, because those types of things can be a little bit more prominent with this particular energy. It can be things that surprise you too. There's always with Uranus a sense of surprise, a sense of something new, a sense of like, haha, here's something that, you know, you didn't think was going to happen, and then here you go, you have the thing. It can be also like breaking through, you know, something that you were stuck with, but now you have the energy to kind of sort of break through and get to the other side. And now that you've gotten on the other side, you're like better for it. And again, this could be really good for relationships that are at a standstill, that are stuck, that are having a difficult time. You just don't know what to do. It just seems like everywhere you turn, all doors and windows are closed. You can have a moment of clarity during this time, especially if you sit down and you communicate about it, which is, you know, Pluto stuff. You kind of have to like dig up the stuff, you know, and get in there. But there are breakthrough moments that can happen, especially if you take action. So action is the name of the game. If you want to change things, it's all about taking action. So it can be a really great time for that. It's also about just being more uninhibited and being more free. That could be more free and uninhibited in your relationships, in your jobs, in your art, and your creativity. If you've just really felt like you've been just kind of weighed down by like the way that things are supposed to be, the way that art is supposed to be, the way that you're supposed to be, your role in relationships and friendships and your family, like, you know, gaining some freedom, trying to do things a little bit differently, it could be very supportive for you at that time, especially if it's something that you're passionate about. You know, that's really important. So I feel like this, you know, is a really good time for like really following your passions and some of the things that you want to do and figuring out where that leads you, especially if you've been like a little afraid or a little reticent about it. Next up, Mercury conjuncts Pluto on the 11th exact. Now we're feeling it all the way into the 14th. So, and then on the 14th, Mercury enters Aquarius, but it'll still be conjunct Pluto. So as I said before in the intro, this is the third time that we're dealing with this energy. So it's not like it's something that we don't understand. We dealt with it in December, we dealt with it in January, and here we are dealing with it again in February. What is the new thing? Well, once we dealt with it when it went through direct, then it retrograded, and now it's direct again. So what have we learned as Mercury was retrograding for this past 3 weeks? There has been a lot of information that has come out. Mercury Pluto very much is about things that are hidden, information that's hidden, words that are hidden. We've seen a lot of very public figures, which I talked about in last week's video with Joe Rogan, and there's also Whoopi Goldberg, both who, mind you, have really, really strong angles to Saturn, with Joe Rogan having this opposition to Saturn in his natal sun and Jupiter, and then Whoopi Goldberg, who has a Scorpio stellium. She's squaring Saturn right now, and she has Saturn, you know, in Scorpio Scorpio, and it's just like squaring her moon and squaring her sun. So there's a whole lot of like the words we say coming up with whether it's something that was hidden that we're saying, ways that we feel that we're sharing with people, and how that is being taken, which is another whole like Saturnian, whatever it is you say, like you will be held accountable for what you say, and then people like digging up information for what you say, which is a very like Mercury and Pluto, like let me go find all of the, you know, the emails and the texts and the podcasts and all of that, and then bring those things up to surface. And there is this thing I think that's interesting with Saturn is Saturn has an association with time. And so it doesn't matter how long ago anything was said, it's the accountability and the karma that comes, whether it was something that happened 20 years ago or whether it was something that happened 3 weeks ago or even in real time. It's really calling people to attention. And then there's a conversation about like what are words and what we say and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and what is a person's view on something. Is it okay to say it? Obviously there's some words like racial slurs that are not okay ever, in my opinion. You know, and all of those things, you know, that come up with that and the discussion around that and how we're going to handle that and what is censorship and what does that mean. And with Saturn and Aquarius, there's a discussion about the law. What's right, what's socially acceptable, what are we going to do? With Mercury and Pluto, there's the truth of what's really being told. What's behind what you say? How do you really feel? What's really going on? Let's communicate about it. What information was hidden that's now coming to the forefront? We have to come to terms with the shadow, with the ugly things, with the things that are difficult. We're seeing this in our mundane world. We're seeing this in our everyday world. So it's telling hard truths. With this particular type of energy. There's this whole concept of like words don't die. With technology, it isn't like, you know, hushed up and pushed under the rug anymore. It's right there, prevalent for everybody to see. And that's important when you're putting content out there, when you're putting information out there, that these, you know, it's out there and it will come back, and it does come back. And should it come back? And should you be judged for what you said, you know, oh so long ago, or what you say right now, a thought that you have in your brain right now? There's so many questions, you know, that we're asking ourselves, like, what do words mean? Do we have the correct information? And that's, I think, the thing that's really important with Mercury conjunct Pluto is, what is the truth? What have you been hiding? And what is now coming to surface, and how are we going to deal with it? What is going to be the disciplinary action, which is a very Saturnian thing with the information that we have? You know, and what does that mean? Is it public discipline? Is it private discipline? Is that enough? Do we need to set examples? There's so many questions about that. Now that's on kind of like a larger scale, and that can also be on a very political scale. Like I had mentioned before in previous videos, we have our own thing, what's going on in Red Hill with the Navy, essentially just leaking toxic materials into our water, saying it wasn't toxic, then saying it was, saying that they would clean it up, then saying that they're not going to, and taking legal action to not do that. And you know, there's so much, this is what I say, but these are my actions, you know what I mean? And like the actions need to back up the words, or the words don't mean anything. And so just whether it be on a global sense, whether it be in your community, whether it be in your relationship, this is all energy that we're dealing with. Communicating the issues that are lying under the surface, talking about them. What are the actions that we're going to take to fix them? What are the solutions that we're going to come up with, which could be unique and interesting, especially, you know, with that trine to Uranus, we might have, you know, something different that we never even thought of doing that actually solves everything. So we're open for new information, but we actually have to be honest about what we're dealing with, right? If you're not honest about what you're dealing with, you can't change it. And that's what's important. So how's all this information that we're talking about going to affect us or help us or support us or not during this upcoming Valentine's Day, Galentine's Day, or Self-Love Day, whatever it is that you celebrate, if you celebrate Valentine's Day, which is interesting because Valentine's Day, you know, was based off of a pagan holiday called Lupercalia, which is a Roman holiday, which essentially was like a sensual fertility kind of holiday where they were into some really, really kinky stuff. I'm going to be honest, like I think I need to do like a separate video on that. It just had to do with whips and like sex and like food, which is interesting and very much in alignment with our energy for this week. But it was replaced, of course, by the Catholic Church. as a lot of pagan holidays were, because it was just so deeply ingrained and or fun for people that they didn't want to give it up. So they just kind of sort of covered it up with another thing. In Normandy, there was another holiday called Valentine's Day, which might be where Valentines came from, but it meant lover of women. So that was kind of sort of like a female holiday. And then it was just something that was celebrated during the Middle Ages, and Shakespeare wrote about Valentine's Day. And then obviously it went to Hallmark, and here we are right now with like all of the things that are expected of you, which none of which you have to partake in unless you want to. But I think it's always a great day to celebrate things that have to do with love and the Venusian, because I think that that's an important part of our lives, especially since she's been retrograde for a long time. We need to bring in some Venusian energy, whether that be with another person or with your family or with yourself. So with that being said, the moon is going to be in Cancer for the first couple of days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of Valentine's Day. And then the moon is moving into Leo. So I'm kind of like thinking about like, what are people doing during this time and what could be some good things for you? So Mercury is also going to be moving into Aquarius on the 14th, which is when most people are celebrating Valentine's Day. This Valentine's Day, I think, is going to be a really good time if you want to explore your passionate and your erotic side to yourself. Whether you are in a long-term relationship, whether you met somebody yesterday and they look good across the room, this is a really good time to hook up. I'm just saying it. Whatever it is that you do you, because there's no judgments here. But this is a really good time for that. It is a physical time. Like I said, Venus is conjunct Mars. That is a very deeply passionate time. It's a really good time for reconnection if your relationship is having a tough time. It's a really good time for connecting if you've just been with the person that you've been with for a really long time. Sometimes things get a little old. They can feel a little stale. You do the same, you go to karaoke every Saturday. You're just like, okay, that's fun. Do something different. Shake it up a little bit. There's that trine to Uranus. Like, what did your lover or partner say that they wanted to do that they were really excited about, but they were shy about doing, or they didn't know if they could do? It's a really good time for that. Now, with that being said, of note, Venus is conjunct Mars. That can, again, it's the push-pull energy. There can be arguments. There can be difficult times. There can be maybe some power struggles. There can be information that you find out that you didn't want to find out during a very passionate heart-to-heart. That changes things. That can break things up. That changes the nature of how things are for the better. There's a lot of different things that come with this energy. So it's a unique Valentine's Day, which is why I'm even talking about it, because you totally can have the most best passionate time in your life, but then like end in an argument that kind of shatters everything, or just information comes out like in a confession that you're just like, oh my goodness, what in the world is going on? So it has a little bit of a mixed bag feel with it. It could be a little bit of everything, and that's kind of sort of how transits are sometimes. It could also be unique and interesting and kind of sort of fun too, and very light. Especially if it's somebody that you're like, hanging out with or hooking up with. That's a very casual thing. Definitely if you have a little crush on somebody and you think it's not going to evolve to something during this time, more than likely it will. Like you don't want to delude yourself with these kinds of energies that are going on, because they are very supportive for like connection, So if you don't want to connect, then maybe you want to take a little bit more caution, because it's like Venusian. It's like connecting to art. It's connecting to family, especially with the moon in Cancer. Really lovely time to have family Valentine's Day. I used to do that when my son was little. Like, we just had a really fun time, and just like, when it came to all of those kinds of fun things, or with your friends, like all of those things, and whatever way that you're doing it, it's nice time spent together in fun and playfulness. So how can you use the energy for this weekend for Valentine's related type of things? So I really like Friday and Monday in terms of like doing things and having like really good outcomes. Saturday and Sunday is good, but can definitely get a little bit more emotional with that moon in Cancer. And then we have, of course, Mars and Venus in Capricorn, and then we have Mercury and Pluto in Capricorn. And so it's just the moon is going to be opposing those. And so it could just definitely be like a little bit more emotional in a lot of ways. And like, especially, when the moon is going to be opposing Mars, Pluto, like, having that deeper heart to heart, really talk about like what's going on in the relationship, and like if there are things that are messy, they'll come out. So, a lot of times I know people don't want to go deep, they just, a lot of couples are working really hard, right? They a lot of times don't get a chance to see each other. So they'll really like schedule these special days to say, this is time that we're going to spend together. And I think that's super important for couples. And then the special time that you spend together, you don't want to have hard conversations. You don't want to go through like all the stuff, because you're like, we go through that all the time. Can't we just like not do that? Can't we just like enjoy each other and have fun and have like like a passionate or intimate and just fun time? Can we just not go deep? But that's kind of the energy, is just supporting all of the passion and the fun, but it's also supporting all of the deep work that needs to be done too. And it could also be that you have to go passion and go that deep in the love, right? And in the physicality of it, so that you can actually touch the problem and transform the problem. So look at it like that, instead of saying like, oh, I don't want to go, into that stuff. Just think of it as like, well, maybe this is what results of that, because they're not separate, right? Intimacy is going deep. Intimacy is about kind of sort of getting out that stuff and bringing it to the surface. So for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm thinking of a more home base, because that moon is in Cancer. So making food together, ordering from your favorite restaurant, getting takeout from your favorite restaurant, eating it at home, bubble baths, really wonderful smelling lotions, things that are comfortable, things that just feel comforting to you, playing board games, having deep talks, definitely everything that has to do with chocolate, just because it's chocolate, guys, it's chocolate. Anything that tastes good, things that are just comforting and that feel good and comforting each other and being in like a nice warm, whether you're like in a warm place like I am here in Hawaii, or having your house nice and warm, if that's how you like it, whatever it is that comforts you and that feels good to you, that is where you want to go with this. And some of that might look a little bit like more home based, especially if you're like a family that's having a family Valentine's Day. If it's a Galentine's Day and it's you and a bunch of friends and everybody's single and you're like, what are we gonna do? Everybody come together and have like a sleepover. Adult sleepovers are so much fun. You have to do it. Watch some Lifetime movies or some rom-coms, which is ridiculous. Pop some popcorn, have fun, do your nails, do your hair, do some henna, like whatever, like just fun home stuff. Go over somebody's home and just have fun. That's kind of sort of the feel that I'm thinking for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If we're talking about Monday, where the moon is going to be in Leo, that is a little bit more of what people consider your like traditional Valentine's Day, like the one that you would see like, on a commercial or so, where you're taking someone out to a fancier restaurant, a nicer dinner. That's where you're proposing. That's when you're giving nice big gifts. It looks a little bit more like classy. It's a little bit more like, showy in terms of what you're giving, like the big bear with the balloons and all of that stuff. It's a little bit more material in that sense. It has to do with more material things, showing your affection through materials, through giving things, through gifts, through shopping sprees, through all of those kinds of fun and favorite things to do, through spending time together. Again, remember, there's some surprise that comes in. So some of you guys who might be alone, missing your loved one, they might surprise you, which I think is like a beautiful thing. So hopefully you'll be that person that gets that surprise. Cross your fingers and toes for that one. So that's what kind of Monday is more supportive for. More like if you're into the big gift giving, if you're gonna pop the big question, if that's what you want to do. If you're doing like a Galentine's Day with your friends, that would be like, I saw somebody here have these, we do all of these like really beautiful outdoor picnics, or people who like design gorgeous picnics on the beach, and someone was doing like a Galentine's Day, like, catered picnic on the beach. Like that is totally like a moon in Leo, kind of Galentine's Day. Or even at a restaurant, just taking the back part of the restaurant and having some balloons and all your friends and everybody there, just celebrating together. So it's kind of sort of more gathering, but it's more so out in the world where you're able to like take lots of pictures. It's a very Instagram worthy Galentine's/day. So, going out dancing and, or going to see a show. I know a lot of like local singers here are doing their special Valentine's Day. One of my favorite singers, Just Totofi, here is doing a Valentine's Day gig at the Blue Note here in Waikiki. So if you're in Hawaii, definitely go see that, because his voice is amazing. But yes, like all of those kinds of fun, more like you taking someone out to go do things, to see a show, to have dinner, that is what you want to do like on the Valentine's Day. If you're celebrating it like for the weekend, it definitely looks like a little bit more like home-based stuff. That's fun, where you can just like lay in bed all day and just have fun. So anyway, everybody have fun. Everybody have a great, passionate, wonderful Valentine's Day week of this Venus, Mars kind of energy, because that's what's coming in. I'm also doing special readings. So if you want to get a synastry reading for astrology, where you're looking at your chart and your significant person's chart and looking at those, and to see like where you connect and where are some things that disconnect, and how you can kind of sort of, negotiate that in your relationship. Or if there's a possible person and you just want to see how things lined up, you can definitely book that. I'm doing that one for the rest of February, and then also doing a special love tarot reading as well, as we are also, obviously going through all this like lovey time, but we also know that there's like a lot of things underneath that we're dealing with too, that we're trying to work out. So a lot of people are having like a lot of, you know, reconsiderations in their relationships and what they want to do. So definitely, if you're interested in those readings, I will leave the link in the bio below. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and do all of the fun things. You can follow me on Instagram at _wild_wahine. And we also do every Wednesday and every other Sunday, as I've been kind of popping in, but we're on Clubhouse doing live conversations and talks about lots of different things. I cover a lot of things that we talk about in the videos, but many other things as well. Spiritual talks, we talk about dreams, we talk about astrology, and we talk about herbalism and magic and manifestation, all those fun things. So if you want to like actually hop on a call and talk to me live and be a part of our community, make sure you join me on Clubhouse, and the club is the Wild Wahine. And like I said, Wednesdays we are there. That information will be linked below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.